of our Govardhana Parikrama, and we'll begin offering our obeisances to Srila Prabhupada, who very mercifully brought us to Vrindavan through his wonderful preaching movement, Lord Chaitanya Sankirtan movement. Here we are. Nama Om Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prastaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane, Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine, Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine, Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhar, Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We've been hearing the glories of Govardhana Hill and many of the pastimes of Krishna with his loving devotees related to Govardhana Hill. And we're now beginning part 3 of a 4-part series. And where we ended up yesterday was, you see on your screen, number 13 was Sankarshan Kund, and number 14 was the Gopal Temple. And following those two, we then visited the Balaram Temple, number 12, and then we visited the Gopal Prakat Stali. That's the place where Madhavendra Puri found the deity of Gopal after Gopal appeared to him in his personal form and said, my deity form is found where it was. He found the deity and the formal worship of the deity began. And that's where the Gopal Temple is today, up on top of the hill. Now, notice on your screen in the bottom, at the bottom left side is number 16. That's Gauri Kund. Gauri Kund is south, or actually it's east of Sankarshan Kund, which is number 13. I hope you see. 13 is that large kind of egg-shaped green body of water, Sankarshan Kund. And number 16, we're going to visit shortly. That's Gauri Kund. Now here's a picture we saw before. Up on top of the hill in that white building, that's the Gopal Rai Temple, where the deity of Gopal was worshipped for many years. And below, at least from our vantage point in between us and that temple, is Sankarshan Kund. There was a question yesterday, which I said I would answer today. What's the meaning or history behind the Sankarshan Kund? First of all, Sankarshan is one of the names of Balaram, or one of Balaram's names is Sankarshan. So we saw yesterday the Balaram deity, or the Dauji deity, the 5-foot deity that was immersed in Sankarshan Kund when there was fear of some attack by invading armies, and then later was rescued from the Sankarshan Kund. Fitting place. There's not a lot of history behind the Sankarshan Kund other than some mention in Vayu Purana, which mentions Sankarshan Kund this way. Oh, Tirtharaj by the name Sankarshan. Oh, beautiful fountain of bliss. I offer my obeisances to you because you give grains and wealth to the Yadavas. Now, there may be a number of Sankarshan Kunds in the whole of the subcontinent of India, but this is referred to specifically with the Sankarshan Kund in Vrindavan. And one other reference specifically in Bhakti Ratnakar. Bhakti Ratnakar is a book describing the activities of the associates of Lord Chaitanya following Lord Chaitanya's departure. Like what we have Chaitanya Charitamrita, for example, that's Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. Bhakti Ratnakar gives histories of devotees of Lord Chaitanya following Lord Chaitanya's departure. It's a well-recognized book amongst the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, where it specifically speaks of Sankarshan Kund. Whoever wants to fulfill his desires should take bath here. This is in connection, this particular passage is in connection with a tour of all the Vrindavan given by a place that we're going to visit shortly. Raghava Goswami took on pilgrimage two very celebrated Vaishnavas, namely Narottam Das Thakur and Srinivasachari. We'll hear something further about both of them shortly. We're going to visit the place where Raghava Goswami resided. It's a very interesting arrangement. So there's the answer to the question yesterday, the significance or history behind Sankarshan Kund. So we're going to visit now Gauri Kund, which is due east, a little bit smaller. Sankarshan Kund is quite vast, and as you can see, this is now in the countryside. Just on the other side is agricultural area. There's no developed residential areas around Gauri Kund. Here's another photograph of Gauri Kund from another angle. And many, many years before it's been developed as you see today. This is a photograph taken many years ago. Now there's a pastime connected with this Gauri Kund found in Rupa Goswami's Vidagdha Madhava. Sometimes it's referred to as Vidagdha Madhava Nataka, and Nataka refers to a play or a drama, because both Vidagdha Madhava and Lalita Madhava are dramas. That section begins as follows. The so-called husband of Radharani, his name was Abhimanyu. And Abhimanyu, early in the morning, left his home and was heading towards Mathura. And when heading towards Mathura, lo and behold, he found his path crossed that of Purnamasi. Now, many of you know who Purnamasi is. Purnamasi is Yogamaya personified in Krishna's pastimes. That is, she arranges Krishna's pastimes. She's the mother of Sandipani Muni. She's the grandmother of Madhu Mangal, Krishna's dear friend. And as we heard yesterday, she's also the mother of Nandimukhi. She had a son and a daughter, Nandimukhi and Madhu Mangal. But Purnamasi is Yogamaya herself in Krishna's Brajalila. So Abhimanyu's path crossed the path of Purnamasi, and Purnamasi asked, this is now a summary of the drama section about Gauri Kund. Purnamasi asked, why are you up so early? He said, I came to see you. I came to seek your blessings. What for? I want to leave Vrindavan and go to Mathura. I want to seek your blessings. And Purnamasi said, why? And Abhimanyu said, Vrishabhanu Nandini Radha is being too much disturbed by that fickle Madhava. so I want to leave. And then there's a lengthy conversation between the two. Essentially, Purnamasi is informing Abhimanyu, look, you're just listening to unsupported rumors, and you know how rumors are. And I tell you what, if you catch Radha red-handed with Krishna, then you can leave and go to Mathura. So that was satisfying for Abhimanyu. And then he made another request. It gives you some idea of his mindset. He was kind of a materialistic fellow. He asked Purnamasi if she could initiate Radha in the worship of Gauri, because he heard that Chandravali's husband, Govardhan Malla, had done that for her, and now he was rich. And I want to become rich too. So can you initiate Radha in the worship of Gauri? And Purnamasi said, very, very good idea. So off Abhimanyu went to find Radha, to make an arrangement for Radha to go to Gaurikund, where there was a Gauri temple, and arrange for the worship of Gauri, so he could become rich by his wife worshiping Gauri. Then it gets complicated. The description has it that shortly after Abhimanyu left, Vrinda Devi came and requested Purnamasi, Krishna has requested my assistance to have some meeting and pastimes with Radha. Can you facilitate that? And Purnamasi was very happy. Oh, I have just the right idea. Radha very soon will be going to Gauri Kund and the Gauri temple. And if Krishna can go there, then he can meet with Radha. And so that was the plan. And Vrinda Devi went to find Krishna to give him the good news. Purnamasi's arrangements are underway. Meanwhile, and it gets more complicated, Chandravali, Purnamasi indicated to Lalita and Vishaka that Chandravali, I have heard, is going soon to visit her father. And on her way, she may stop at Gauri Kund and the Gauri temple. So Krishna came to know that also. And Krishna was there to greet Chandravali and her friend Padma. Remember, two different groups of gopis, the left wing and the right wing groups of gopis. We're going to visit at the end of this session, we're going to visit Sakhi Sthali, which is the place where Chandravali lived. It's on the other side of Govardhan Hill. But of course, the gopis, they walked across Govardhan Hill, no problem. And we don't. So Chandravali, on her way to see her father, was passing by the Gauri temple because she was a worshiper of Gauri. And who was there but Krishna? And Krishna had some funny exchange, verbal back and forth with Chandravali. And Krishna then attempted to embrace Chandravali. And just at that moment, Chandravali's grandmother came. And Chandravali's grandmother chastised Krishna severely and took Chandravali back to her home, the home of Govardhan Malla. Shortly after that, then Radha came with her friends to gather flowers for the worship of Gauri. And Krishna saw them coming. And this is a painting of Radha with some milk products to offer to Gauri. And in the process of gathering flowers, Krishna blocked her way. And they had some very heated conversation back and forth. Don't stop me. I'm going to worship Gauri. And as she was gathering flowers, Krishna requested Vrinda Devi for some assistance. Vrinda Devi helps Krishna in his pastimes. He said, please make some arrangement for some female clothing and some gold. And Vrinda Devi understood Krishna's mind without us even saying what was the purpose. What he wanted to do was to dress himself as Gauri personified. So Padma guessed that it was Vrinda Devi, no, it was Lalita and Vishaka that informed Chandravali's grandmother that she was going to be meeting with Krishna. So she wanted to get back at Lalita and Vishaka. So she, Padma, went to the home of Abhimanyu and Jatila and said, guess what? Radharani is going to be meeting with Krishna at Gauri temple. Go quickly, catch him in the act. And Abhimanyu was very grateful. Oh, thank you, Padma. Now, because just this morning, Purnamasi said, if I can catch her red-handed, I can leave Vrindavan. So off they went to the Gauri temple and Gauri Kund. The plot thickens. When they got there, Krishna heard Abhimanyu's voice saying, Radha, I've caught you. Here you are at Gauri Kund, involving yourself with Krishna. I've caught you. So Krishna didn't say anything because he's standing there in front of the deity. And Madhu Mangal said, Abhimanyu said, what is that effulgence? And Madhu Mangal said, Gauri has decided, because of the great devotion of Radha, to manifest herself outside her deity form. See that effulgence. In Krishna, it says in this Vidagdha Madhava that Krishna was so happy seeing Radha, his form became exceptionally effulgent. And Jatila wanted to know what Gauri had said. Gauri had said, I'm sorry, Radha, I can't fulfill your request. Your benediction is not possible. So Abhimanyu asked Gauri, meaning Krishna, what was that benediction that Radha was asking for? And in a high-pitched voice, Gauri, who was Krishna, replied, it's too terrible. I can't tell you. I'm unable to tell you, but maybe Vrinda can tell you. So Vrinda said, this bad news that she doesn't want to tell you is that tomorrow Kamsa is going to come and cut off your head and offer it to Lord Shiva. And Abhimanyu's response was, oh no, Gauri, please do something to stop this. And Gauri said, I already said there's nothing I can do. And Jatila then pleaded, Radha, this form of Gauri has appeared out of the deity because of your devotion for her. You ask on your husband's behalf. So Radha pleaded, please give your mercy. She knows it's Krishna. Please give your mercy. And Gauri replied, normally I don't involve myself in these worldly affairs, but because of your extreme devotion for me, I will fulfill your request on one condition. What's that? What's that? That you never leave Braja and you always engage in my worship and service, meaning Krishna. And Jatila said, yes, yes. Radha, say yes. You won't leave Vrindavan. Abhimanyu said, plans to go to Mathura are canceled. And then Radha, they forgot completely about Radha being caught red-handed. You see the elder person directly in the center in a red sari. That's Jatila, dark complexion. And there's Krishna standing there, because Krishna and Madhu Mangal were doing the puja. But this expansion of Krishna standing there as the deity of Gauri, and Krishna was enjoying this wonderful pastime. And after Jatila and Abhimanyu went back to cancel their plans for leaving for Mathura, Radha and Krishna enjoyed pastimes together. Then Purnamasi came right at the right time and said, "Oh, Krishna, your pastimes are so wonderful." And Krishna said, "Purnamasi, please take whatever blessing we wish your blessings and wish to do anything for you that you'd like." And Purnamasi said, "I don't have any desires. I'm not needing anything fulfilled, but there is, since you've asked, there are two requests. You please remain here in Vrindavan and enjoy loving pastimes with Radha in the groves of Vraja." And I forget what the other request was. "Please distribute your blessings and mercy to all the residents of Vrindavan." So that's pastime at Gauri Kund, according to Rupa Goswami's Vidagdha Madhava. Now, Gauri Kund is not a place that is commonly visited because it's a little out of the way, but it's a wonderful pastime, so we visited virtually. Here's a big map. Way over on the right-hand side, that's Radha Kund. Way over on the left side is where we're headed. That's Punchari. Punch means tail. And in the middle, that number 2, that's Govardhana town. And we're pretty much halfway down the eastern side of Govardhana Hill. And here we are. We just added number 4, that's Anior. Now, we visited Anior already. So here's a more detailed map of Anior. That's now on the right side, number 1, Anior. We visited Prakatstali, number 2. And just so you get a sense of where we are geographically, we're heading for number 3, which is Govindakund. Govindakund, number 3. And over here on the lower right side, that's Sankarshan Kund. And upper, around 2 o'clock on the face of a clock, that structure on top of Govardhan Hill, that's the Gopal Rai Temple. So in case you're a bird and you're taking aerial pictures of things, that's where we are, heading for Govindakund. A very wonderful place. We'll spend some time at Govindakund. I think you'll like it. Before we get there, we're going to pass by a Shakshi Gopal temple, which is on the left side of the road. That means Govardhan Hill is to the right. Shakshi Gopal temple. This isn't the original Shakshi Gopal deity. That Shakshi Gopal is in Orissa. But this is a Shakshi Gopal temple where it's a Govardhan Shila, decorated very nicely with his arm raised like he's Gopal. Nice little temple. Shakshi Gopal temple. Now, once we get to Govindakund, which is number 2, that large green square in the middle, we'll visit all these places one by one. And for starters, we're going to go to number 1, which is the Madan Mohan Temple. As you're coming down the Parikrama path, you'll see that brown area. Often you'll find cows grazing or cow herds with their cows, many, many, many cows in that area oftentimes. And the Madan Mohan Temple is there to your right as you're walking in, or the upper right side as we see the screen. So here's the front of the Madan Mohan Temple. There you see the cows, and I think there's some sheep over there too. Very common place for the cowherds to take their animals. We're going to go up these steps and enter the Madan Mohan Temple. And there's a pujari waiting to greet us. And there's a nice altar. Of course, Gaurnitai on one side, Radharani on the other side. And in the center is Madan Mohan, There's a closer image of the Madan Mohan deity. And here's Govinda Kund. Now, sometimes there's older photos where that yellow wall area is bright yellow, is not the way it was painted long ago, but that's during one period of time. And we enter from the far right corner. When you come in on the Govardhana Parikrama, that's where you walk in. And the buildings on the far side or our left, that's where many of the temples are. You'll see there's, the spire of the temple here and there. Here's from that corner where you enter. On the far right, that's where there's the place, for example, the place where Madhavendra Puri resided for some time after discovering Govinda, Gopal deity, and worshiping in this area. Here's devotees, pilgrims, taking bath in the sacred waters of Govinda Kund. We heard the whole story of how Govinda Kund was formed, the bathing of the Surabhi. Actually, we didn't cover that part. Well, the Surabhi delivered milk for bathing Krishna, and then at this time, some versions say, the Bhagavatam says that Indra gave the name Govinda. Other places it says that Surabhi said, you are our Govinda, not him, not Indra. Here's some prayers written by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur about Govinda Kund. Govinda Kund is exalted for its many spiritual activities. It was here that Indra, defeated by Lord Govinda, offered prayers to him and bathed him. Another photograph from the other side. With humility caused by great fear, Indra took hold of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna and, in the company of a Surabhi cow, performed his coronation festival by bathing him with the waters of the heavenly Ganges river. That's Airavata was carrying that water in his trunk. Thus, Lord Krishna's kingship over the cows became splendidly manifest. I pray that Govinda Kund, the lake created by that ceremonial bath, may eternally appear before my eyes. So virtually we're having this appear before our eyes. Devotees taking their bath, or at least taking water from Govinda Kund, sprinkling on their head. And the nearby temples, here's a few of the pujaris. This one fellow looks a little intense, but he's actually a very friendly person. And the last time I was there, he was sitting in the same place. He seems to be happy to greet the pilgrims. And another nice pujari of one of the local temples. So after visiting 1 and 2, we're now going to visit 3. That's the Radha Govinda temple. You'll see down at the bottom, it's 6 o'clock on the face of a clock. Number 3 down there, that's the location of the Radha Govinda temple. Here's the entrance outside the gate. And here's the deities of Radha Govinda. Worship is quite simple, but the deity form is very attractive. Here's the same deity and more completely dressed, nicely dressed more recently. Notice the Panchatattva painting or image on our lower left, and other forms of Radha and Krishna. And this is more recent because the photo of the Panchatattva is much better. So that's the Radha Govinda temple. Next, we'll go take darshan of Radha Gopinath, number 4. Radha Gopinath, number 4. You see in the image on your screen. Simple temple, Radha Gopinath temple. Very nice deities. And there they have a Shila or a Shiva Linga where they worship, specifically, they worship him as a devotee of Krishna. And to one side is Ganesh, to the other side is Parvati. And Panchamukhi Shiva in the center. Here's that area where the deity is established. Now we're going to go to the next place. This is looking from the north side, looking south. These are where these temple structures are, again, where Madhavendra Puri resided for some period of time by the side of Govinda Kund. This is before they painted everything yellow, but you see the same image at different seasons, at different times. And the surrounding area, the cows up on top of Govardhana Hill. And this is the rainy season, everything is nice and green. I don't know how cows keep their footing on the side of Govardhana Hill like that, but they manage somehow. A telephoto lens showing the same cow and the, what's that, heron, the white bird. There's a blue cow, Nilagai, on top of Govardhana Hill. A photo lens looking at the same cow. So now we're going to go to number 5, the Jagannath temple. There's the Jagannath deities. Worshipped nicely with Gornatai as well by their side in front of them. Now this is a place, one of the many places that Vallabhacharya established as his sitting places, called Baitak, Vallabha Baitak. We're going to see one on the other side of Govardhana Hill also. So this is the place where he sat and performed his chanting. This is a series of Govardhan Shilas that appear to have been worshipped during his time. Down below, wearing white, that photo or painting, that's Vallabha, and standing before him is Krishna. So at least that's how his followers envisioned him, as an intimate devotee of Krishna. This is a deity of Narayana, four-armed form of the Lord, that it is said he personally worshipped for some time here. That's the Vallabha Baitak. Now we're going to number 7. That's the Gopal temple. The Gopal temple looks very much like Gopal. Here's the area around Govinda Kund, where the temple is situated. Some old trees by the side of Govinda Kund. Here's the entrance to the temple. And here's Gopal. Nicely dressed, nice garlands, differently dressed on a different day. Nice care and attention to this deity of Gopal. So that's the Gopal temple, and there's just 2 more. Mukharavind. We saw Mukharavind already at Manasi Ganga, and it appears that this Mukharavind, sorry to say, but it seems just like a fundraising arrangement. That's the little structure for Mukharavind, and on the left side, according to the local pujari, that is Mukharavind, the mouth of Govardhan, and Anantashesha is on the right, just like a serpent, a cobra has his head outstretched sometimes. So that's the shape of this Anantashesha deity on the right. In the same area is a Ganesh Shila, And it's a little hard to make it out why they call it a Ganesh Shila, but there's along the right-hand side, going vertically up and down, is an indentation on the Shila that looks like a trunk of an elephant. And on the right-hand side, over to our on this image is the Airavata Shila. You see that he's marking the eyes of Airavata, the elephant, and the elephant ears and so forth. There's a place where a little milk is placed inside what is like a cup. There's other places in Vrindavan, near Unchagaon in particular, where there's a number of places that are there are stones shaped like this in a row, where it is said the cowherd boys would come and take their meals from these cups. And on the upper level, just above that cup Shila, is a Shila that says, that they say, it's Krishna's heel print. If you look closely, you can see. So this is the back side where the hill of Govardhan is to be found just behind Govinda Kund. And the last place, number 9, a little out of the way, is Radha Shamasundar. Now, normally, when we do Govardhan Parikrama, we don't visit all these places because it would take forever for a large group to go to all of them. So we're doing it now virtually, but don't expect when we go to Govardhan for Parikrama, we're going to visit all these places, because I don't think I'm going to be your guide when you do that. So this is the local Pujari, and here's the deities. Nice deities. And here's our local buffalo taking their little bath in the Govinda Kund in different season with the algae growing, but they don't seem to mind. They like the Govinda Kund water. So now we're moving along after visiting Govinda Kund. And if you look on the map, that's that green square space right next to the right of the number 1. And we're going to be heading, following that red line, from Govinda Kund to Dauka Dauji. Dauka Dauji is up on the hill, on the hill of Govardhan. And if you look all the way to the far left, where the tail of Govardhan is found, that's a place, one of the places where Krishna performed or started performing his spring Rasa Leela. And on our way to get to Dauka Dauji, there's several places like this where there are sadhus who are helping local pilgrims to worship Govardhan. He has this nice jug of milk, and pilgrims sit there and offer flowers and milk and their prayers to worship Govardhan. It's such a way of life in Vrindavan. Here's the pilgrim path. Notice the visitors to Vrindavan commonly make their pilgrimage around Govardhan Hill barefoot. Especially it's nice in this inner path. The outer path is where cars go and it's tar and it's hard on your feet. This is very natural, soft sand. And continuing on down the road a bit, we're going to make a right-hand turn and go to Dauka Dauji. But on the way, we may see some cows, some local cowherd boys, very eager to have their pictures taken. And of course, Govardhan Hill. And some of the old trees. Now, many of these photographs, the images of the hill of Govardhan and the Shilas of Govardhan and the trees and the birds and the monkeys and everything, these are Bhakti Chaitanya Swami's gift to all of us, because he has been there for 25 to 30 years taking pictures. And over those periods of time, he has selected some of the most amazing images. This is during the rainy season. Everything is very, very green. And the Shilas are of different colors and different shapes, different sizes. Here's some local devotees having worshipped these two Govardhan Shilas just by the side of the mountain. It's said that when Krishna left Vrindavan to go to Mathura, Govardhan was feeling great separation, and many of the Shilas that were up on the top of the hill of Govardhan tumbled down like this in the mood of separation. I hope you like Govardhan Hill because there's many inspiring images to help you think of Govardhan as we go along. On top of Govardhan Hill, you see just above, that blue marking, Doka Dauji, that's the temple from the Google map view. Here's the path that leads to it, and there's the temple, pinkish in color during the time of this photography. Now, we don't go up there because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wouldn't walk on Govardhan Hill. But the local pujari, he certainly walks on Govardhan Hill. It's a place from which Balaram was observing the rasa dance of Krishna that began at the southern tip of Govardhan Hill in the Punchari area. We'll visit that place where the rasa dance occurred. One of Krishna's favorite places in the favorite season, the spring season. The pujari agreed to take one of the cameras from the devotees, take a picture of his place of worship, and then someone took a picture of him sitting by the Shilas that he worships inside. That's the local pujari at Doka Dauji. Dauji, as we mentioned, it means elder brother, and Dauka has to do with looking. Balaram was astounded when he saw the charm in the moonlit night of Krishna's rasa dance with the gopis. It was so astounding what he saw. That was the place that where the temple is built, where he was observing the rasa dance. And as he was observing the rasa dance, he became stunned. And when he became stunned, his mukut, or crown, fell from his head. And when that crown landed on this Govardhan Shila, the Govardhan Shila felt great ecstasy. And in the ecstasy, the Shila melted and made an impression of the crown of Govardhan, the crown of Balaram. So it's called the Mukut Shila. There's another image of the same. And as you see, it's very shiny because many devotees come and offer flowers and offer milk and offer their respect to this very special Govardhan Shila, Balaram Mukut Shila. Many photos from different angles of the same. There's a close-up. So this is one of the places that we commonly visit as we're heading for Punchari. Doka Dauji is number 2, and we're heading for Punchari number 3, the tail. You see that red line? That's where we're going. And as we're going, we'll see some of the scenes along the way, because still Govardhan is quite steep. It's not as steep as further back, but it's nearly vertical in dimension or direction. And some local girls or ladies are performing Dandavats Parikrama. Very common to see this in Vrindavan. some of the local monkeys, quite playful. There are little different manners in Vrindavan, in Govardhan than in the town. The town, they're a little bit ruffians. And they don't mind people coming and taking pictures of them. Here's one fellow that kind of didn't like people taking pictures of him. He's staring back at the photographer, and at a certain point in time, he got used to it and posed a little profile for the cameraman. And here's another young fellow, a little bit younger, taking rest in the side of the tree and take a nap. Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj calls him the philosopher monkey. What's life all about? Oh, I think I'll just take a nap. And beautiful peacock. And pilgrims going along this dirt path, sandy path, the Raj is very wonderful. And it depends on the season, but many devotees you see. It's a whole stream of people all the time going around Govardhana Hill. So now the slope is a little bit less steep, but still the height of Govardhana is up there. And many different shilas. We mentioned this before. Here it is again. Local devotees in Vrindavan will sometimes do this, stack stones together with the intention of making a statement that they wish to have a residence by the side of Govardhana Hill in their next life, so they can get the benefit of the purification. Now, there are many places in this stretch where there's caves. We're going to see some of those caves shortly. This is a season where the tail feathers of the male peacock have receded. Later, they'll become fully manifest. So, majestic Govardhana Hill. Now comes the cave section. You see from the image on the screen. Here's one on the upper right-hand side of Govardhana Hill. Very clear place where there's caves. There's 7 celebrated caves and others that are smaller. Here's another one. One can actually enter these caves or take shelter in these caves. A mother monkey with her little baby. She looks pretty serious. Don't mess with my little monkey. And these are a different breed of monkey, or langur monkeys. They're far more gentle and have a certain markings, a darkish face. It's sometimes said that Hanuman's features resembled these of the langur monkeys. Now here's a monkey that definitely doesn't want to be photographed. It's a male monkey. When he detects that somebody's checking him out, look at him. Don't mess with me. And he opens his mouth really wide. So we don't want to be bit by the local monkeys. Look at those teeth. It can be very painful and very dangerous. So keep your distance. Don't play with the monkeys. The langur monkeys are far more docile, generally speaking. And local goat. Here's a close-up. He's looking back at us. Looks like he's smiling. And a local sadhu standing and offering his respects to Govardhana Hill, as we often do as we're passing, that somehow it strikes you that Govardhana is being very merciful to give his darshan to all of us. Here's a local sadhu, another fundraising program for him. But that's okay. The center is the personality of Godhead in any case. So now we're at the end of the hill. We've managed to go all the way from Kusum Sarovar to the end of the hill, the punch, the tail. And we're going to see some images of the end of the Govardhana hill, the visible part. And then number 2 down there at the bottom is the Nrsingadev temple. So there's the side of the Nrsingadev temple that you see from the Parikrama path. But to enter the temple, you have to go to the other side. And here's a group of devotees going up the stairway to that temple. And here's a panorama view from the rooftop of the temple looking back at Govardhana Hill. You see the tip of Govardhana Hill, and you see it slowly rising. And on the far right side, you can see a white structure on top of Govardhana Hill. That's the Gopal temple. And we've covered quite a bit of territory in between. Here's the Nrsinga deity, dressed nicely and cared for nicely, a very simple pujari. And he sometimes shows the lotus feet of the deity, and beneath the dress of the deity, there's Hiranyakashipu. It shows Hiranyakashipu with horns. It looks like a pretty mean guy, but no problem for Lord Nrsingadev. Here's another day where the deity is nicely dressed. And here's a closer up photo of the deity carrying symbols of Vishnu, a club and a disc. And here's a close-up of his face. The pujari one day allowed the devotee in charge of his group, that's Bhakti Chaitanya's arm, reaching to touch the lotus feet of the deity. Now, just a detail about what's a Nrsinga deity doing in Vrindavan, because the mood is different, isn't it? The understanding is the Nrsinga deity is giving protection for the devotees from material desires so they have no obstacles on their path of Krishna bhakti. That's the mood that one visits this temple. There's a nice place for kirtan up on the rooftop as well. From the rooftop of the Nrsinga temple, we're looking at Naval Kund, and then further off in the distance, on the right-hand side, that's Apsara Kund, and far, far in the back, a tall spire, that's Lota Baba temple spire, and to the left of that, that's the water tower. We're going to see some photos taken from the water tower. I hope they didn't get in trouble climbing the water tower to take pictures. But you see there's a staircase going up if you want to do that. So number 3 and number 4 are next. That's Naval Kund and Apsara Kund. Naval is connected with the name of Krishna as Navayovana, or ever fresh. And we'll hear shortly the history of how Naval Kund became established. In the background, you see that's the Nrsinga temple. Here's the newly renovated Naval Kund, because it didn't always look like this. It looked a little less well cared for. And behind it is the Apsara Kund. Now, there's 2 local stories. There's nothing from scripture about either of them, how they were formed. And one of those narrations, local stories, is during the Abhishek in which Krishna was bathed by Airavata and Surabhi. There were also 7 Apsaras who came from the heavenly planets with their celestial waters to bathe Krishna. And after bathing Krishna, the waters ran off his body and collected in the form of Apsara Kund. And the other local story is when Radha and Krishna met, preceding the rasa dance at Rasastali, they, seeing each other, their whole mood melted into liquid, and Krishna's melting became Navalkund, and Radha's melting became Apsara Kund. Again, there's no scriptural reference for either of those narrations, but these are local explanations of why they're there, the history of how they got there. These photos are taken from different years, during different seasons, different states of repair or disrepair. Of this is all of these are Apsara Kund, the same place, just different times, different seasons, different years. And this is back here. Where are we? No, there. That's from the water tower, looking down on in the center of the photograph. That's Navalkund, and over to our right, of the photographer's right, that's Apsara Kund. They're very close to one another. Yeah. So from here, we're going to go to Lota Baba. And those who have been to Govardhana Hill, it's one of the places you really look forward to visiting again and again and again. So notice the spelling here is Lota, which is of course different than the Lota that you put liquids in. One version is Lota was one of the names of Krishna's cowherd boyfriends. And there's another spelling, if you remember from yesterday, Lotha. In the local language, that means waiting. So the narration, this is the temple itself, very tall spire. This is the deity of Lota Baba. And what is the story behind Lota Baba deity goes like this. When Krishna was anticipating in his pastimes that he was going to leave Vrindavan and go to Mathura, he informed some of the devotees. And one of those devotees that he informed was Lota, his cowherd boyfriend Lota. And Lota protested. He said, I have a feeling that when you go to Mathura, you're not going to come back. And Krishna reassured him, no, I'm going to come back. I'll come back right away. If not today, by the end of the day, I'll come back tomorrow. And Lota continued in the same mindset. I just feel you're not going to come back. And Krishna assured him several times, I'm going to come back. I'm going to come back. Here's instruction. You just stay right here. And the path from where Krishna asked him to stand points in the direction of Mathura. Because if you remember that initial map of Govardhana and over to the right is Mathura, practically due east from Govardhana Hill is Mathura. So just look down the path and you'll see me coming. So what could he do? Krishna was going to leave. So he just did exactly what Krishna said. He waited looking down the path for Krishna to come. And the next day, Krishna didn't come. And a week later, Krishna didn't come. Months later, Krishna didn't come. His mother was sending messages. You got to come home and eat. I'm not eating till Krishna returns. He said he would come back. So he waited, and eventually Lota became this deity, Lota Baba. And according to the local description, 4,500 years later, Krishna came back in the form of Lord Chaitanya and embraced Lota and said, see, I told you I would come back. So here's the It's a very nice place, very charming deity. Although he's a cowherd boy, he's got a mustache. There he is, a close-up image of Lota Baba. And here's a it's a drone image of Govardhana Hill looking towards the tip. The tip is down there in the center. And if you look just to the left of the tip, that's where you see that brown structure. That's the Nrsimha temple. And directly the tip is pointing to Naval Kund. And to the right of Naval Kund is Apsara Kund. You see the water tower there. Over to the close to the far right, that tall tower, that's the Lota Baba temple. And we're next going to visit a few places that are not exactly on the Parikrama path, but it's a very nice place for Gaudiya Vaishnavas to visit. Here's some of the scene locally, a banana seller. This is for feeding the monkeys. And they're very enthusiastic. They don't bother the vendor. They wait till people buy the bananas and then bother the people with the bananas. Here's a local pujari offering charnamrita. And here's some of the ladies gathering water, because in Vrindavan, fresh water is a little difficult to find because generally the water is salty. So where there's freshwater wells and pumps, there's many ladies that gather in the morning hours to gather water for their family's use during the day. A local monkey checking out the scene, and some of the local pigs. Now they're pretty jammed up together. I don't know how this image was taken, but maybe there was something to eat and they were eager to get the something to eat. There's the tip, southern tip of Govardhana Hill. And you'll see in the very next image from the same place, this is maybe from the water tower as well, there's a kund where you see the grassy area to our left of the Parikrama path. It's a different season. It's after the rainy season, so things are far more green. And there's a nice kund. So depending on where you are at what season, it's going to look a little different. And now we're going to go to 6, 7, and 8. 6, 7, and 8. That's the Nachi temple, Rasa Stali area, and Raghava Goswami's cave. All of them are very interesting. So 6, we'll go there first. That's the Nachi temple. Towards the entrance, there's this little shrine with an image of Srinathji. And then the temple itself, this is the exterior of the temple. And when you go inside, there's the Nathji deity. Very shiny, very nicely cared for. By his side is a Govardhan Shila. And at different times, different deity dress. Very nicely cared for, and friendly pujaris. In the backside, there's Sutala Kund. Sometimes it's just dry. This happens to be some water there at this particular season. There's no special significance of the Sutala Kund. That's just its name. Sutala means a very beautiful place. It is very near the Rasa Stali area. Here's another photograph from another time of the year, that Sutala Kund area. And this is where the rasa dance was performed. Of course, during the time of Krishna, there were far more trees, but it may have looked something like this. These are old Kadamba trees. And there, in the moonlit night, Krishna and the gopis would engage in rasa dance. This was the rasa dance that Balaram saw from the top of Govardhana Hill. and was astounded by what he saw, and his mukut fell to the ground. In this area, many kadamba trees, ancient kadamba trees, and tamal trees, and other types of trees. Of course, the terrain has changed a lot, but it gives you some idea where the Rasa dance was performed. Very sacred place. And last, that was number 7, the Rasa Stali area. Now we're going to go to number 8, which is Raghava's cave. There's one entrance to his cave. Now, cave literally means it was a cave. What he did was to chant his rounds, his japa, undisturbed. He crawled in the cave and chanted where there's no sound, no light, no distraction. I don't know if I would like to chant in a cave, but Raghava Goswami did. And the other side of the cave is the exit. So now both sides are locked, but there was a period of time when you could go see at least one of the entrances just by the side of the Nathji temple. We're going to tell a little about the life of Raghava Goswami. He's a very interesting personality. In Bhakti Ratnakar, what we know, a lot of whole of Braj, particularly about Govardhana, comes from Raghava Goswami's tour with Srinivasacharya and Narottam Das Thakur, taking them to all the places and describing. So in Bhakti Ratnakar, there's a whole chapter describing that tour and where they went and what he said and what they saw and so forth. In the same Bhakti Ratnakar, there's a very interesting section that says after this tour, from time to time, both Srinivas and Narottam would again go to Govardhan Hill. They were very charmed and inspired by what they were told and shown by Raghava Goswami. And one time when they were sitting together, they heard the sound of a flute. And it was not an ordinary flute. They were very charmed by the mystery of this flute. So they followed the sound, and that the sound took them inside a cave. And when they were inside the cave, they smelled the fragrance of some otherworldly scent. And Srinivas told Narottam, I'm sure this fragrance is the fragrance of Krishna's body. And in ecstasy, they both fell to the ground unconscious. After they had regained consciousness, they saw standing before them a young cowherd boy asking if they were all right. And they wanted to know who he was. He said, well, we were herding cows, and I saw you entered this cave, and I knew it was very dangerous here, so I came, and I've been standing here to watch and make sure that you're all right. And now that you've regained external consciousness, I have to go now. And just poof, he just disappeared. And they were wondering, who is this boy? Who is this boy? Of course, it was Krishna. And Bhakti Ratnakar says, they came out of the cave and sat under a tree, feeling transcendental ecstasy and floating in their tears. That night, they slept in the same place, and in their dreams, both of them saw Lord Krishna, appearing in a dark, handsome form, which enchanted all the worlds. He wore the colorful clothes of a dancer, a flute glistening in his right hand, and his effulgent face was so attractive that Cupid would have fainted if he had seen him. the Lord smiled and affectionately greeted them, saying, "You were charmed," so describing what happened during that day. "You were charmed by my flute music, and the sweet fragrance of my body made you faint. Running I came to you, pretending to be an ordinary cowherd boy. I let you see me, but then I disappeared. Now I am letting you see me again. Please look and be happy." The dream continued for some time, and then the Lord disappeared. When Srinivas and Narottam awoke, they could not stop the flood of blissful tears. With joyful hearts, they discussed Lord Krishna's pastimes at Govardhana Hill. And that's taken from chapter 6 of Bhakti Ratnakar. So Raghava Goswami was a very special personality. And of course, the other associates of Lord Chaitanya are very special personalities. Some time ago, in one of the classes, evening home visits, somebody said, after Krishna's departure, have there been any miracles that Krishna showed? There's so many. The reference specifically at that occasion was in Udupi, Krishna turned around the other way because there was a Sudra who was at the backside of the temple, and the Pujari wouldn't let him in, so he was praying to Krishna from the backside of the temple, so the deity turned to face his devotee, who was outside the temple in the backside. There's many, many, many such things, and this is one of them. And we're looking at the cave of Raghava Goswami. So now moving along from number 8, notice where we were. See the red lines. We followed those red lines leading up to Raghava's cave. Now we're going to follow going along the Parikrama path, heading in a north direction, or in the map, it's going to the right. Follow that red line. That's where we're going. And this is where it's going to take us. From the tip, the Punjari tip, to the Srinathji temple, which we just visited. And shortly we're going to see many blue cows, or the local language is Nilagai, like Nila Madhava, Nila, blackish or bluish, like this, the color of Krishna. And then so many other places. One by one we're going to visit. Indrakund, Airavata's footprint, Surabhi Kund, Airavata Kund, Harji Kund, and all the way down to Jatipur, and that's where we're going to end today's class. As we're going along, here's a stately old bull, very calmly checking us out as we're checking him out. And the hill of Govardhana is far more gently sloping on this side compared to the other side. Groups of cows grazing on the side of Govardhana Hill, and the majesty of Govardhana appearing in its own way on this side of the hill. Here's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur glorifying. There is a pleasant grove of sandalwood trees on Govardhana Hill. Although snakes generally flock to sandalwood trees, no snakes ever come here. Or if sometimes a snake may come, it is not poisonous. Or if sometimes a poisonous snake may come, its poison is automatically counteracted, and it can do no harm. As the best servant of Lord Hari, Govardhan has made this wonderful arrangement for the Lord's pleasure. I hope, like me, you're becoming addicted to the beauty of Govardhana Hill. The sights are not ordinary. especially knowing that it's not just a mountain, it's Krishna himself. And the best of Krishna's devotees, abundantly giving his darshan to us in many different colors and different shapes, with the local monkeys situated there, the trees, the cows. So next we're in between 2 and 3 right now. And we're going to see many, many photos of the blue cows. Now, the lighter color is the female, and not always, but mostly they don't have horns, as you see. And here's the male with horns, another male, darker color. And they just, like deer, they just stare at you. But they're very timid. If you make a movement quickly, they'll leap away, like deer will also. Here's the male deer, he's hiding behind a tree. And they do like that sometimes. The gopis describe the deer in Srimad Bhagavatam in this way. Blessed are all these foolish deer, because they have approached Maharaj Nanda's son, who is gorgeously dressed and is playing on his flute. Indeed, both the does and the bucks worship the Lord with looks of love and affection. So that's the look of love and affection for Krishna on his or her face. More Nilagai. A very young one with crows on his head, back. A whole group of them together, and some female Nilagai looking after each other nicely. And of course, local monkeys, abundant in Vrindavan. So that's number 3, the blue cow section. And now we're going to move on together. We're going to see Indrakund and Airavata footprint. Now it's said when looking on the other side of Govardhana hill, that's where Govindakund is. That's where that big Abhishek was performed. Now it is said that the Airavata elephant came in for a landing at Airavata footprint. We'll see the footprint shortly. Here's another image of the same area. Airavata footprint is now number 2, and Indrakund is number 1. Same, just a more detailed. There's Daukadauji on the other side, and we'll see that as well. Here's the local sadhu moving along the Parikrama path. Looks very contented and peaceful. Indrakund is where the bathing by Airavata took place. The Surabhi bathing took place on the other side. This is Indra offering his prayers to Krishna. In the back behind him is both Airavata and Surabhi, who accompanied him. This is the Shila where it is said Airavata landed. It's on the side of Govardhana hill. It's very easily visible, even from a distance. And some descriptions say Airavata came in for a crash landing and made a big impression on the Shila. And there's the back side of Daukadauji. We saw the front side. That's where Balaram was observing the Rasa Leela of Krishna. And down a bit is the Surabhi Kund, very large, and much better cared for than it was in the past. Often the water is clean, and it's a very peaceful place for chanting japa, depending upon the time of the day and who all is around. So that was Surabhi Kund, number 3. You see that darker image to the left of the number 3. And Kadamba Van just means areas where there's Kadamba trees, many, many, many Kadamba trees, then probably more than today. And then number 4 is Airavata Kund. Airavata Kund. Here's the Kadamba Grove, and it is said that this is a very special place. Local people will tell you. It's a special place where if you take dust, or even more so, if you roll in the dust of Kadambavan, there's very special spiritual benediction. And so devotees are sometimes found just rolling in the dust of Kadambavan. And here's an image of a young fellow who's really into it. He's not just rolling in the dust, he's totally covered, but he's enjoying it. Okay, so we visited now Surabhi Kund, Airavata Kund. Next, we're going to go to Harji Kund. Oops, there's Airavata Kund. Harji Kund is up in the upper right. It's larger. And the Airavata Kund is, there's trees surrounding it. It's in dark color. There's Airavata Kund. Airavata is the elephant carrier of Indra. And that's what it looked like before. It's been renovated since, and this is what it looks like today. I don't know if it's really an improvement, but that's what it looks like today. And then we're going to go to Harji Kund. Harji is a name after one of Krishna's cowherd boyfriends. It's partially developed. You see that wall in the midst of the Kund, some structure on the backside. Again, when devotees visit, because it's a little off the Parikrama path, devotees may or may not visit. Probably when I go there, we won't, but you can see virtually where it is. And from there, number 2, we're following the red line, and it's some distance, but we're going to go to Mukharavind and the Dandavati Shila. All those buildings where the white area in the center of the photograph, that's Jatipur. And this is the headquarters of the followers of Vallabhacharya. And many, 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 many devotees, especially Gujaratis who are followers of Vallabhacharya, they like to come here. And the Shila that you see in the center, where they're all hovered around, that's what they consider the mouth of Govardhana. Gaudiyas consider the mouth of Govardhana by Manasi Ganga, but that's okay. They're different pictures of all of this. And that's the Shila itself, where there's lots and lots of milk, and there's a trough where the milk goes flowing, and they gather the milk, and it's fed to the cows. The Shila remnants from bathing the mouth of Govardhana. This is the side of the hill just after Mukharavind, and there's some cows up along the side of the hill, and here's the back side of the Gopal temple. Now, there was a question yesterday, which I said I would address today, and that is what's the history of how the Gopal deity that was found by Madhavendra Puri ended up in Natadwar, being cared for by the Vallabha followers. And the history is a little perplexing, but it goes something like this. I mentioned yesterday Madhavendra Puri trained up a number of brahmanas to engage in worship of the deity Gopal. Two prominent ones were put in charge. And after some time, as they became very old, there was a necessity for someone else to be put in charge. So Raghunath Das Goswami, the history says, he gave that service to Vittala. Vittala was the son of Vallabhacharya because Vittala was an extremely dedicated devotee and servant of Lord Chaitanya. And he continued in that service for some time. However, after some time, there was an idea that by the side of Gopal, there should be a Radharani deity. The Gaudiya pujaris wanted that. And so there were funds being collected to arrange for a Radharani deity, but the Vallabha followers who were assisting with the worship, they became suspicious that the Bengalis are sending this money to go to Rupa and Sanatan and the followers of Rupa and Sanatan for their service instead of the Radharani deity. So there was some mistrust, the seed of mistrust over money, believe it or not. And so what was done was, while the Bengali devotees were engaged in worship of the Gopal deity, their homes down the hill were set on fire. And as their homes were set on fire, they went running down the hill to rescue their homes, and they were confronted by a group of Vallabha followers, and there was a big fight, apparently a bloody fight. And the whole matter was brought to the king. And the king at the time, according to this history, was Akbar. And Akbar ruled in favor of the Vallabha followers. So they continued the worship of Gopal. And then sometime later, following Akbar, Aurangzeb became king, and for the protection of the Gopal deity, Gopal was taken from the Gopal temple to Natadwar for worship by the Vallabha followers. Now, I don't know how accurate that history is. I don't know how inaccurate the history is, but that's the history that I've received. Someone was curious, and as we mentioned yesterday, history can be told different ways by different people. So I can't validate or invalidate any of it. But that's the explanation of how Gopal became worshipped by Vallabha followers in Natadwar. But it's the same Nataji in Natadwar as the Gopal deity that was found by and worshipped by Madhavendra Puri. Same. And this is the backside of the temple. And as you see, some devotees that are not ISKCON or Gaudiya followers, they walk on Govardhana Hill, they take darshan of the deity inside. And here's a local devotee doing his sadhana. Near this area, there's another one of the sitting places of Vallabhacharya. When you go inside, practically right across or nearby the Mukharavind is an entrance into the city proper. And in the city proper, there's one of Vallabhacharya's sitting places in the city that's known as Jatipur. Jati means renunciate. Okay. So now next we're going to Dandavati Shila. There's the Dandavati Shila. Now, for some reason, I don't know the reason, but at least the local Vaishnavas consider the worship of this Dandavati Shila as something very, very special benediction, special mercy, special something. I don't really know what that is. If somebody knows, they can send me a message so I can find out. The Dandavati Shila is dressed up very nicely during the Kartik month. And on top, you have the Dandavati Shila is another Govardhan Shila that functions as his face, of course, with his left arm raised. There's the face of the Dandavati Shila dressed up during the Kartik month. Okay, now this is again a drone's eye view of where we are. We're on the looking back at Govardhan Hill. There you see the Gopal temple, and we're moving along the side. The Parikrama path is very, very close. You see that one pilgrim walking along it. It's very close to the side of Govardhan Hill, the gently sloping Govardhan Hill. But this is what it looks like at the top of the hill. And we're nearly done. We're passed through Jatipur. You see the red line going from left to right, and we're heading for Govardhan town. And that's where we're going to end up. This is the Parikrama path. Along the way, we see different decorations of different Shilas, many cows, affectionate dealing mother with her little calf. Interesting worship of a Govardhan Shila by the side of the path. Here's a celebrated one where on our left or their right, Radha is the light-colored Shila, and on our right or their left is the Sham Shila, side by side. So it's a famous place, Radha Sham Shila. And there's one of the local inhabitants having a nice time in a puddle of water, enjoying happiness of pig life in Vrindavan. Some of the local monkeys. The little monkey looks like he's got a special haircut. The local parrot, looking this way, looking that way. Very rare, but sometimes one can find other creatures like this owl checking us out. And of course, many peacocks. The slopes of Govardhan Hill, gently sloping compared to the other side, quite tall, just like on the other side is the Anior side, where the Anukut was performed. And some local Brijbasis or pilgrims doing their Govardhan Parikrama, like the many, 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 many thousands do. A local sugarcane juice maker, interesting little machine. Have you had sugarcane juice before? Yeah? Sugarcane juice before? No. One day when you go to Vrindavan, especially in the early afternoon, you're completely exhausted and sugarcane juice will pick you up. Okay, so when you get to the Govardhan town, it becomes very congested. The soft sand path disappears and it becomes the tar pavement again. And the red line is going to lead us to one of Bhakti Chaitanya Swami's favorite places. That's Garib Das, who's a bit of a character. He sells Tulsi beads and many other kinds of Tulsi ornaments. I don't think he will sell us any of those things he's wearing. But they over the years have developed a friendship. He likes sandalwood paste too, and has a red beard. Very jolly fellow. In the thick of the marketplace. And one of the last places we're going to is this Sakhi Stali. Sakhi Stali. You see the Kund, and it's a little off the path, because you see the red line. That's where the pilgrims, the the yatras usually take their members, but Sakhistali is not so far away, and it's the village where Chandravali and her gopi friends lived. Just like Radha lived at Varsana, and her intimate gopi friend lived nearby, around Varsana. So Chandravali is in this area, not far from Govardhan town. And in the Sakhistali area, this is a little Gopal temple. No, it's not commercial, it's very simple, very nice. So we're going to continue going in the northerly direction, but as our map shows, heading for the right. And this is almost at the very end. Here's a nice devotee doing Dandavats Parikram. And it is said, I've never done it, but it is said that if you do Dandavats Parikram around Govardhan Hill using one stone, it will take you 3 weeks. And this individual has more than one stone, maybe 108. But let's take a close look by his head, and let's just see. There is a picture of Jaipataka Maharaj and a picture of Radha and Krishna. So the devotees had conversation with him, and it turns out he's a local Brijbasi who is a disciple of Jaipataka Maharaj, who has extended his mercy far and wide to many, many people in many, many places, including this Dandavats Parikrama personality. And that's it for this morning class. And let's see if any of our participants would like to have some discussion on any of the topics we went over today. Visiting Govardhan Hill. We have just one session remaining.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Dear devotees, you can please unmute yourself and ask your questions, or you can type it in the chat box and I can read it for you. Thank you.
We have something locally. If there's
Lakshmi Priya has a question.
Okay, please speak.
Hare Krishna, Maharaj, please accept my humble.
Something locally. If there's
Lakshmi Priya has a question.
Maharaj, I had a question that spiritually, Vrindavan and all the holy places are very beautiful. So why can't we see them like beautifully?
Why we can't see what?
Why we can't see, like we just see it as a normal place, but we don't see it like more spiritually beautiful.
You don't see Govardhan Hill as beautiful? That's what you're saying?
I do, but it's not that beautiful.
Okay.
So,
Well, the saying goes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You've heard that phrase before? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So I see beauty, you may see rocks. So because of devotion for Govardhan, understanding who Govardhan is and the mercy that Govardhan is extending, I see beauty. And somebody else may not see that same beauty. So what to do if you're not seeing beauty and you're seeing all these pictures where someone's saying, oh, isn't that beautiful? Well, my recommendation would be to such a person, to you or someone else, that continue with the bhakti process, and as the cleansing on the one hand and attraction for Krishna on the other hand both develop and mature, then you'll see beauty, not just rocks, in course of time. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj. I also have a second question that in some Puranas it is written like if you bathe in this kund or that kund, you'll get your desire fulfilled. But Prabhupada has told us not to bathe, just sprinkle it on your head. So,
You want to, the bathing versus the sprinkling, how does that work?
yeah.
A bathing, sprinkling is sufficient. Bathing is also sufficient. But if circumstance doesn't permit, then sprinkling equals bathing. Okay?
Thank you, Maharaj.
Anjali Mataji, do you want to go next?
Hare Krishna. I have two questions. Well, I have more than two, but to be not so greedy. My first question is, why is there a discrepancy on what is the mouth of Govardhana Hill? What is a different mouth other than Manasi Ganga, and what is their argument to it? That's question one.
Well, let's do one at a time. Okay? There's a statement in Brahma Samhita that goes like this. Text 61, you can look it up later if you like. Yadrashi Shraddha Siddhi Bhavati Tadrashi. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, but I know Yavat and Tavat means as this, so that. Something known can be compared to something that's not known. So that's Yavat Tavat or Yadrashi Tadrashi. The something that's known is someone's faith. Yadrashi Shraddha. Siddhi, Bhaktisiddhanta translates that as realization. Siddhi, Bhavati means manifests. Realization manifests accordingly to one's faith.
Okay.
So someone has this faith, someone has that faith, someone has another faith. Or some people may be just exploiting. That came up yesterday. Oh, this is a good fundraising opportunity. Let me call this the mouth of Govardhana and raise money and maintain my family or whatever. So, but for, other those then are just taking advantage of innocence of people. Some persons may have genuine faith, and based upon their genuine faith, this is their realization, and that is another's realization. And because we're Gaudiya Vaishnavas, we're very happy with Mukharavind being at Manasi Ganga. But we don't disrespect someone else's faith because they have some other faith. They worship, and their faith is going to that place of their worship where their faith rests. And where they get that faith, they got it from their predecessors. Okay. And going back in line. So they're just following their line that says, this is the tongue of Govardhana or the mouth of Govardhana. And they're worshiping accordingly.
Okay. Very, very satisfactory answer. And also reminds me to not criticize. Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah.
The second question is, as an aspiring Rupa Nuga Vaishnavi, why on earth would I want to go to Chandravali's lake, Sakashtali? That's the other side. Why would I even take not even 5 minutes there?
If you are like Raghunath Das Goswami, here's a story of Raghunath Das Goswami. You know who is Raghunath Das Goswami? Just a little bit. Raghunath Das is one of the 6 Goswamis. And when he was with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for his youth, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave him a Govardhan Shila that he had personally worshipped. And Raghunath Das understood when he gave Govardhan Shila, he was giving him his place of residence at Govardhan. after Lord Chaitanya's departure, he went and stayed in Govardhana, and he excavated Radhakund and Shamakund. So one time, one of his followers brought him, because he had this practice of being very austere. Every other day he took some buttermilk. And sometimes it was just in the palm of his hand, and sometimes it was in a leaf cup. In Vrindavan or in India, you when you go there, you know what leaf cups are. So one of his followers brought a very large leaf cup and filled with buttermilk. And as Raghunath Das was looking at this leaf cup filled with buttermilk, he asked him, "Where did you get these big leaves?" And he said, "Oh, well, one of the devotees said that they got the leaves from a tree by the side of Sakhi's Stali, and they're very large leaves, so I brought them to you." And Raghunath Das threw them away. Right on the spot. Because he's an advanced, that's his mood of love. He's a follower of Radharani, and he's not going to even drink buttermilk from a leaf that came from that place. Now, that's a Rupanuga Vaishnav, Raghunath Das Goswami. Now, as an aspiring Rupanuga Vaishnavi, you may not want to go there. But Vaishnavas may go there just to appreciate this is part of Krishna's pastimes. These gopis, turns out Chandravali is very dear to Krishna. Chandravali, according to Rupa Goswami, Chandravali became Rukmini, Krishna's first queen. So Krishna loves the right-wing gopis as he loves the left-wing gopis. Krishna loves both. He loves the left-wing gopis most. And if you're a left-wing gopi, you don't have anything to do with the right-wing gopis. But you can be a Rupanuga, you can be a Raganuga Vaishnavi and follow Chandravali if you want, but not me either. So normally we don't go, but that's just one of the places that's part of Krishna's pastimes surrounding Govardhan Hill. There's an answer to your question.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Radhe Radhe.
Shubhangam, do you want to go next?
Yeah, my question is, did Balaram drop his did Balaram's crown fall because of the beauty of the rasa dance, or did it fall because of Krishna and all the gopis together? The beauty, the brightness and the beauty.
His crown fell because he lost his equilibrium in ecstasy. His crown was on his head. He saw the rasa dance. His whole body was moving, trembling in ecstasy. And in his ecstasy, the crown fell.
Oh.
That's why the crown fell. And the rock, when receiving the crown of Balaram, was in ecstasy and melted, making the shape of his crown.
I see. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Then there is another question from Raghupati Prabhu. Thank you for the nice class. Vallabhacharya was an intimate associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If I am correct, then why did he start new sampradaya? How is it different from Gaudiya?
Well, he didn't start a new sampradaya. He was initiated in a different sampradaya, and he was faithful to that different sampradaya. He had affection for Lord Chaitanya, as did his son, but he didn't start a new sampradaya there. And what are the differences? It's subtle, and it probably, I would be overstepping my adhikar to say what the differences are. But one of the main differences, as far as I understand it, is Vallabhas particularly are fond of Krishna's childhood pastimes, And there, it's a little delicate with the Vallabhas having to do with the pastimes with Radha and his Kishore pastimes. But you know, there's a very significant alignment more than there is difference. But I think that's another class at another time to say, you know, the subtleties of the differences.
The next question is from Radha Kunda Devi Dasi. Are there any pastimes behind Airavata Kunda and Surabhi Kunda mentioned? You can ask, yeah.
Well, there's not much detail other than those are the places where Airavata and Surabhi landed. Now the Surabhi Kund, Surabhi was bathing Krishna at Govinda Kund. But it's marking the place where Surabhi, because Surabhi came with Airavata and Indra, or Indra came with Surabhi, and Indra came with Airavata. So the three of them came at the same place at the same time, and those kunds are marking where they came, which was on the western side of Govardhana Hill. The Abhishek was on the eastern side of Govardhana Hill at Govinda Kund. Not much said about either place, more than that I'm aware of anyway.
Thank you. This is Bhadra Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Dandavad.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for so much details, for giving all the pictures and all the pastimes.
Are you in Florida, Bhadra?
Yeah, I'm in Alachua.
Ah. Okay, nice to see your smiling face.
Well, thank you. I mean, after doing so many Govardhana Parikrama, this is the first time I'm hearing all this detailed pastimes and all the nice, beautiful pictures. Thank you.
So your comment?
Just one thing I can tell.
Go
No,
ahead.
just thank you to you. Thank you.
You want to add
The
anything?
thing is, I had heard from, well, only I can add is that the Sachinandan Maharaj had told me about Surabhi Kund, because he said if you are committing offenses at the feet of the devotees, just like Indra had performed, Indra had committed offenses at the feet of Krishna. So if you have committed offenses at the feet of the devotees, then please go to the Surabhi Kund, bathe, and do the parikrama and chant your rounds there. So this is something which I usually go and do it at the Surabhi Kund. That's what he had told me.
Nice. In response to what you just shared with us, one time when we were doing Govardhana Parikrama, there were some priests or pandas who were a little on the greedy side and aggressive and greedy side. There were 3 or 4 of them, and one of them was particularly vocal. And one devotee was taking exception of how he was harassing the devotees. And he dealt with that aggressive, greedy panda in a way that was not becoming of a follower of Lord Chaitanya and Srila Prabhupada. And he yelled at him and screamed at him, and, you know, he made an offense to a Brajbasi Brahmana, and that devotee had great spiritual difficulty thereafter. Mm-hmm. So just the opposite of what Sachinandan Swami had said, I personally observed. Very, very serious offense and very serious reaction. Great spiritual difficulty thereafter, without the detail. So there's a lesson. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a question. Where did the Rasa dance took place? Govardhan or Vrindavan forest? There is a place in...
There's many places. There wasn't just one place. It takes a while to understand like that. But Rasa dance would take place, for example, there's several places, but this southern tip of Govardhana Hill is where the spring rasa dance would occur. And the autumn rasa dance, there are different places, but Bangshivat is one of those places in Vrindavan town. And very near the same place where the Radha Damodar temple is in Nidhivan. And what's the place that they lock it up and they don't let you go in at night because they say you'll go mad? Bhadra, what's that place named? You have to unmute yourself.
Same is the same in Vrindavan. Same. I understand. It's the Nidhi one. As
Yeah.
far as I.
There's another place also. I forget the name.
Uh-huh.
Okay. So there's multiple. They're short. There's multiple places where the rasa dance was performed, just like there's many places where the tax pastime was performed, not just one or two or three, but many places. It was just a lovely pastime that Krishna liked, and he would perform that pastime in different places. Okay.
Next question is from Narottam Vilas Prabhuji. Could you kindly explain a bit more about the difference in mode between Chandravali and Srimati Radharani?
Well, in short, two things. Chandravali, being the right-wing gopi leader, would be very compliant and obedient to whatever Krishna wanted, at least in principle or in general. And Radharani and her group, they would talk back to Krishna and say strong things to Krishna and call him names, and the left-wing gopis. And Krishna liked that intimacy of the gopis, of Radharani's group, even more. But another feature is there was a competition between, just like, in this down below is like it is above. That is, down below here, when this group feels the conservatives and the liberals, it goes on, not just, in modern politics, it goes on in between individuals, and some people are more conservative in their views and some people are more liberal in their views, and they disagree with one another and they compete with one another and so forth. So that's another dimension. It just adds to the sweetness of Krishna's happiness that there's a competition amongst the gopis for his loving affection. No, it's not the material kind of a materialistic man enjoys that there's different women that want him and they're competing for him. That's the mundane ego position. Rather, Krishna's position is he enjoys both the Chandravali group and the Radharani group. And he has a particular affection for the Radharani group, but it doesn't mean he discards or disregards the Chandravali group. They're very dear to him also. They're intimate associates also. It's just of a certain disposition. And then the followers, they have their subsets of moods and skills and ways of doing things. And it just adds to the mix of flavor or rasa. Because the rasa of Krishna, as one Vaishnav said, not all masala is garam masala. There's all kinds of mixtures. And, Krishna enjoys the varieties. So it's the varieties of loving exchange. Okay.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. That's all from here that I can see.
On this side, we have some questions on this side. Is that okay with all of you? Okay, I'm seized.
Yes.
Okay, we'll go ahead. We're going to change the battery of the portable microphone for just 30 seconds. battery changing. Everything's good as soon as the batteries get changed. You'll see. We trust in the material energy. That's a mistake, isn't it?
His first question is from Sri Radhika Mataji. Will you please elaborate on the quality of faith of Lota Baba and Shabari that enabled them to not lose faith in Krishna or Rama's unfailing reciprocation in spite of their long wait for it?
Well, qualities have degrees, including the quality of faith in the instruction of a superior. In Shabari's case, it was her guru, and in Lota Baba's case, it was Krishna himself. But the principle is the same: faith in the words of the superior, however long it takes, that's how long it takes. So let's just take us, for example. We are told that the process of bhakti will carry us to Krishna. And then I know some persons who are impatient, like, how long is it going to take? Or I know some other ones that say, is it really possible? I'm such a distracted and, materially covered person, and so many anarthas and this and that. Is it really possible? But faith takes one beyond all that, however long it takes. So that's unrestricted faith. And we want to come to that position, and we may not be in that position, but we should strive to come to that position, because that's our qualification. Unconditional faith. That's something that we learn from Scripture and from our founder Acharya. Unflinching faith in the words of the spiritual master is the means of spiritual success. So it may be a gradual development for each of us, but that's where we want to go.
This question is from Sarvabhauma Prabhu from India. I was just wondering, how come Lota Baba is still waiting, as we also heard that Krishna came back to Vrindavan after killing Dantavakra? Didn't he meet Krishna at the time?
We don't hear that he met Krishna at that time. I also thought of that detail when preparing for this and thinking of Lota Baba. Why didn't Krishna go see him when he came back to spend time with the residents of Vrindavan after killing Dantavakra? I don't have an answer to that. I guess we'll have to send a text message to Krishna and ask him why he didn't go see Lota Baba.
Amrita Keli Mataji has a comment and appreciation. The comment is, very grateful for this virtual parikrama. It's deeply absorbing and enlivening, making me very eager to have the opportunity to visit in person in the Association of Devotees soon. Question: you mentioned Lota Baba place is something we want to visit again and again when we go for Govardhana Parikrama. Could you kindly share the mercy and significance of this place? Somehow this story of Lota Baba makes me very sad every time I hear this. Though you mentioned Lord Chaitanya visited Lota Baba deity after 4,500 years of waiting, but it feels sad that Krishna made such a wonderful devotee wait so long.
So you can put a complaint in Krishna's complaint box and say, you know what? I don't think you're merciful. I hear people say that you're merciful, but as far as I'm concerned, you're not merciful. And maybe you're a follower of Radharani by thinking like that, because you're being contrary to Krishna. And maybe you're being a follower of Chandravali because you want Krishna to keep his word and he didn't keep his word. But the understanding I have is Lota Baba kept Krishna in his heart, just like Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. I'll repeat, Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. I'll repeat, Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. And a devotee like Lota Baba knows that. So his waiting was Krishna's in his heart. Like the other residents of Vrindavan, they were brokenhearted when Krishna left. And so the horrible emotion of separation from Krishna, because Krishna said he would come back. And that promise was sustaining their lives, the residents of Vrindavan. And according to Brihat Bhagavatamrita, by the way, Krishna regularly came back. But the residents of Vrindavan, when Krishna came back by Yogamaya's influence, they would forget completely. And regularly, after staying for a while, Krishna would leave again. And they would forget that he left previously, and he would do it again and again. That is to say, when you're in the care of the Yogamaya potency, the essence is your attachment for Krishna and the loving reciprocation with Krishna. And that means whatever he wants to do, that's fine. That doesn't mean you become milquetoast or bland, but everything what Krishna wants is fine. So I recommend you start thinking along those lines with Lota Baba and everybody else connected with Krishna's pastimes. Otherwise, you may never want to become a devotee of Krishna because, after all, he's unkind. Next.
She also mentions the name of the place in Vrindavan where Rasa dance would take place, Seva Kunj.
Seva Kunj, there we go. Bhadra, Seva Kunj. Seva Kunj. In addition to Nidhivan is Seva Kunj. Yeah, he's nodding. Okay.
This next question is from, maybe a comment from Rama Raghava Prabhu. Looking at the last image, I feel inspired by the devotee of His Holiness Jaipatak Swami Maharaj to be in constant association of my Guru through his Vani. Also, I feel fortunate that I'm getting so much mercy from my Guru that we are having this Parikrama in his association. Next question is Ramesh Ramachandran Prabhu. Virtual Parikrama versus actual.
Keep going.
Virtual Parikrama versus actually going to the Parikrama. Can I recommend to people who couldn't go, will they also get the Govardhana Parikrama Sukruti? Please suggest.
Well, hearing Krishna's pastimes, seeing virtual images of Krishna's pastimes is very beneficial. But it's not the same as moving your feet through Braj Raj. And Bhadra will tell you all about it. But anyone that's been to Vrindavan, this is one of my appreciations is the dust of Vrindavan is irreplaceable. There's this nice description in the what's the section? The description is, in chapter 12 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, the cowherd boys are described by Maharaj Parikshit, by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit. And he says, one of the verses, the yogis, even if they become successful in fixing their mind without deviation upon Paramatma feature, they cannot touch even a particle of dust from the lotus feet of Krishna, which the cowherd boys are always in the playful association of. So the virtual is nice, but the dust of Vrindavan is more than nice. So when you do have a chance, please go. Don't just stay at home and watch the videos. Yeah.
This question is from Rupa Vilas Prabhu. What is the significance of carrying number of stones by devotees doing Dandavat Parikrama?
It's just an increase of vrata. What's the difference between chanting 1 round, 16 rounds, and 64 rounds? It's a vrata. And there's some intensity with an increase of vrata.
This is from Snehavalli Mataji. I have read in a verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita that Radharani says that she would be obliged to serve anyone who gives pleasure to Krishna. Then why wouldn't our acharyas support that thought?
The question is not clear why our acharyas would not support what Radharani says. So maybe she could send in some explanation of what her question is, because I don't get it.
And one of her other comments is, I have also read that Vallabhacharya first took initiation from Gadadhar Pandit. There are 2 questions from Sanchari. First one, are the names that we know, the pastime places such as Nandagram, Varshana, Sakistali, etc., the same names as they were known at the time of Krishna's pastimes, or are some names honorific?
I'm not a historian, so I cannot say during Krishna's time what were places named.
And the second question, I'm thinking about how it was forbidden for Radha and Krishna to really meet, especially with Jatila and Kutila, and their special part in the Vraja pastimes. So, when it comes to pastime places such as Radha Kund and Shyamakund, and how their sweet interaction is what created it, did all the Vrajavasis at that time know in full the truth about these places? Or was it a friends only secret so Jatila and Kutila wouldn't become aware and start their special rasa?
Complicated question. The relationship was private. There was suspicion of the relationship from many quarters. Purnamasi certainly knew. And the young gopi friends of Radharani certainly knew. And others may have known or may not have known. But the function of Jatila and Katila was to create tension in their loving relation that wasn't unwelcomed, but it was part of the sweetness of meeting with Radharani and having pastimes with Radharani when there was some opposition. Now, you and I or other persons that have some loving affair going on may not want any opposition, but Krishna enjoyed. And they played that function of opposition, which he enjoyed. They did a nice service for the pleasure of Krishna to increase the intensity of joy of Krishna. I think that's it. Anything upstairs here? Anyone? Okay.
There is one question here, actually. Acharya says that Abhimanyu is shadow of Krishna.
Yes.
Could you explain more?
I only know that that's what our acharyas say. That is to say, the relationship between Radha and Abhimanyu is not apart from Krishna, but so it's a Gaudiya Vaishnav transcendental picture to begin with, anyways, that Radha was married to Abhimanyu. I don't know if outside of the Gaudiyas there is that picture that Radha was married to Abhimanyu, but the marriage was to the shadow of Krishna. Abhimanyu serves as the shadow of Krishna. Now, how does that understanding come about? I don't know the details other than our acharyas just assert like that. Now, there may be somebody that knows some of those details, a detail in how the Gaudiya Vaishnava acharyas accept Abhimanyu as the shadow of Krishna. All I know is that's the general understanding. Now, there are in Jiva Goswami's Tattva Sandarbha, there's an explanation of 10 different kinds of pramana. And I'll try to remember to send to, I guess, to Premadatri, who then can send to everybody else, the section of Tattva Sandarbha that deals with pramana that doesn't have shabda, doesn't have scriptural support, but rather has general acceptance amongst the Vaishnava community and Vaishnava authorities. Like, for example, I'll give a for example. For example, the situation that we observe in Gopastami, many of you must know. On Gopastami, there's this widely accepted image of Radharani wishing to be with Krishna and Krishna wishing to be with Radharani on Gopastami. And so Krishna sends Subal, who looks complexion-wise like Radharani and height-wise like Radharani. Krishna sends Subal to go change clothes with Radharani so that Radharani, carrying a calf in front of her chest, so Jatila can't detect that it's Radharani, thinks it's Subal. Subal is going to look for a calf. He goes inside, changes clothes with Radharani, and Radharani comes out carrying the calf across her chest so she can go meet with Krishna on Gopastami. Now, there's no scriptural evidence for that, but it's a widely accepted pastime of Krishna and Radha, so much so that there's a number of temples throughout ISKCON where it shows a calf by the side of Radharani or sometimes even Radharani's arms. No, there's no scriptural evidence for that. It falls under a different category of evidence. And I forget the Sanskrit term, atiya, something like that. But I'll send to Premadatri. It's taken directly from Tattva Sandarbha. And so that's a generally accepted fact or pramana or evidence, because it's a generally accepted amongst Gaudiya Vaishnavas that that's a pastime of Radha and Krishna, although there's no scriptural reference for it. So similarly, this other example that we were just discussing, what's the scriptural reference for this or that? And amongst Gaudiya Vaishnavas, that Abhimanyu is the shadow of Krishna. I don't know if there's scriptural reference for it or not, but it's a generally accepted fact amongst the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, and therefore, without Shastra Praman, we accept it. Abhimanyu is the shadow of Krishna. Now, maybe somebody out there in the listening audience, or even not in the listening audience, may know whether or not there's scriptural reference for it. But we all know, as a generally accepted fact amongst the Gaudiyas, that Abhimanyu is the shadow of Krishna. So that's the authority, this atihiya, or whatever the Sanskrit phrase is, which I'll send when I get free to do it. So are we done? Is there one
more?
One more, and then we're going to end with one more.
Okay. So will you be doing a Vrindavan and Barsana virtual parikrama soon?
Will I be doing a Varsana Parikrama?
Mm-hmm.
What I was thinking to do is sometime next time we get together is to do a Radha Kund Parikrama. Yay! In detail. But this evening, or the final part 4, there'll be a little mini, like super mini, of visiting Radha Kund and some of the places at Radha Kund. But I do not have on my radar screen a Varsana virtual visit just yet. Maybe sometime later, okay? Hare Krishna. Now we have one more in the room question, and he has his microphone and he's going to say it, and then we're going to end for sure.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for that detailed explanation of the entire Govardhana hill. The slides were good. Your explanation was excellent. But what I feel, when you were going through the slides mentioning the upper right corner, the bottom right corner, at least I could not get it, how exactly you were defining. But if this could be like, people who are visiting this Govardhan village with this map kind of thing. When you were telling those, I was just going through the Google. I could not find the way you were explaining. Okay. Maybe people or devotees who are going to that hill, maybe give this the entire view and your kind words on every, whatever the things you have explained, that would be very helpful. This is a very suggestion from my side, Maharaj.
Well, there's always room for improvement, but what those maps that showed the blue dots with a number, all of that was a gift to me from Bhakti Chaitanya Swami. And Bhakti Chaitanya Swami did that presentation with the Google Maps and the blue dots with the numbers for the whole world. You can check it out. GBC Strategic Planning Team, great Govardhana Parikrama, Bhakti Chaitanya Swami. He very kindly provided me with all the slides and the Google Maps with the numbers, and a lot of the animal and bird and, monkeys, and those came from him also. So I don't have a way to improve on that. If you couldn't follow it, I suggest you go through it again, because there's a video of all of this. It'll be circulated. And if you look closely at the screen, you'll see number 1, and then there's a little chart, an index that says number 1 is such and such, like Punchari, or 1 is Radhakund, then number 2 is Govardhana Hill, Govardhana Town. Over there is Punchari, 1, 2, 3. That's one of the maps. And it's very clear. And all of that is just to give you, or the viewer, me, an orientation. Where are we? I like it. Some people don't need it. Some people like it. I'm like, where am I? It's for that purpose, or for people who want to know where am I? Where is everything? Geographically located or structurally located as we're moving along. Now, many times I have done Govardhana Parikrama maybe 50 times, maybe less than 50 times, but probably 50 times. But I didn't really know where I was, and it really didn't matter, because I was by Govardhana Hill, and that was fine. But I appreciated the effort that Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj invested in helping you understand you're moving from this place to that place to the next place, and where are they situated from the, Google map view or the bird's eye view of where is everything. That whole part of it could just be dropped out, and people can just go from one place to the next place and not worry about where they are in relation to any place else. They just go from one place to the next place. I personally like it. And I'm just sharing what he gave to me because it helps me understand where, okay, this is where we've been, where are we going to next? Okay, here's where we are now. Where's next? Where does it all fit together? The puzzle pieces fit together like this. And I appreciate your offering. I like that you're offering feedback, but I'm not so inclined to do it differently because it helps me. And if someone finds it doesn't help them, then just, delete it or ignore it. But if you didn't understand it, go back over it again, and maybe it'll put the pieces together. This piece fits with that piece. That's what it does for me. Okay, we're going to end because we have a schedule to keep. And thank you all for joining. We'll see you for part 4 in a little while. Well, yeah, and for those of you in Phoenix, it's the Sunday evening class. And for those of you that are in Portland, it's your midday class. So